Hello and welcome back to the channel. So we are going to do another update on Kaspa's price action, given the fact that we have had this pretty massive liquidation that just happened. But before we do get into it today, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also to turn on post notifications so that you don't miss any of my future videos. So the first thing that I want to point out about this liquidation is just the absolute speed at which it happened. So we went from basically 12 cents down to 10 cents in the space of around 5 minutes. So when you get up the minute chart on Kaspa and you have a look at the wicks down, you can see that we had this huge, roughly 20% move down in the space of around 5 minutes. So this was very much what would be considered a capitulation, and likely quite a lot of leverage was taken out in this move. And when you compare this move to the move that other assets had, so we'll use Tau in this example, all other crypto assets did also have a move down, but the move overall was a lot more measured and a lot slower in these other assets. And basically the main reason for that is because Kaspa is particularly sensitive to the geopolitical events that are in the Middle East right now, because a lot of the core devs are Israelis. Whenever there's sort of negative news such as Israel attacking Iran, Kaspa's price is, particularly sensitive to that bad news. However, when looking at this move kind of in the context of Kaspa's entire price history, from all-time highs, we came down to roughly 50% down, and we're currently sitting at around 45% down. So this move has been slightly bigger than the prior two drawdowns, with the prior one coming to around 45-46% drawdown, and the one before that being around 40%. So, it has been a slightly bigger drawdown, but nothing completely out of the ordinary. And Kaspa has, in the past, had much bigger drawdowns than this. So, the drawdown that it had in the first half of 2023 was overall a 71% drawdown. So, that was a much sharper and much worse drawdown. And when you look at the timing of that drawdown as well, it was actually quite a bit quicker than this one was. So from the top to the bottom was around 50 days. So, a negative 70% move in the span of 50 days is, a pretty significant and a pretty huge drawdown. And then this move here as well in late 2022 was around a 70 or 75% drawdown. So once again, compared to the drawdown that we have currently had, they were a lot worse than the current drawdown. And when you look at all of Kaspa's drawdowns, then the average kind of falls within the around 40 to 60% drawdown, with, some being exceptions and being more than that, with around 70% or, 37% on this one. But overall, the average level of the drawdowns that Kaspa has had has been around that 40 to 60% drawdown. So from a price perspective, this drawdown is not really out of the ordinary. And also from a timing perspective, it's not too far out of the ordinary. Now, this is at this point the longest drawdown that Kaspa has had, with the majority of drawdowns lasting around sort of 50 to 70 days. And currently we are on day 86 of this drawdown. So, while it is slightly longer than the prior drawdowns we've had, it's nothing too out of the ordinary. And considering the fact that we have, at this point, had several red weeks in a row, and really we've been moving down and had red candles for the past 3 months at this point, with, a few green candles mixed in there, but certainly nothing to call the end of the drawdown. But, likely at this point, we should be due for a reversal and due for some green candles. And a likely indicator that the drawdown has ended and a reversal has started could come from Heikin Ashi candles, which kind of serve to remove a lot of the noise and a lot of the price fluctuations, and are a lot better at kind of predicting a reversal in the trend. So once we print a green weekly Heikin Ashi candle, that could be a good indication that the drawdown is coming to an end. Now, you do occasionally have some noise in there with, singular or only a few green candles, but overall it is a pretty good predictor of when the trend is going to flip bullish. So that could be a very good thing to look out for when Kaspa prints its first green weekly Heikin Ashi candle. And looking at Kaspa, considering the 45% drawdown that we have currently have, buying Kaspa at these levels would give you around an 80% return on investment if and when we get back to all-time highs. So, if you believe that Kaspa has topped for this cycle and that Kaspa's run is over, and you don't believe that the future good news that we're going to be having, such as the 10 blocks per second fork, multiple tier 1 exchange listings, as well as just being in an overall positive liquidity environment and an overall crypto bull market, then yeah, this might not look so attractive. But if you believe that those positive fundamentals are going to drive prices higher and that we will get back to all-time highs, then buying here would yield an 80% return upon getting back to those all-time highs. So, if you do believe that Kaspa is going to continue higher, then these levels offer a very good and very attractive buying opportunity. And the fact that, Kaspa currently is massively diverging price-wise from its fundamentals, with the price currently going down, but the fundamentals and adoption all massively improving, with the number of active addresses and also transaction count reaching all-time highs with the kind of expansion and adoption of the KRC20 network, as well as the fact that Kaspa recently achieved 15 million transactions in one day, which is a overwhelming record for a proof of work and may well be pretty up there with any other chain, even non-proof of works. I'm not sure what the actual record is for a chain and the number of transactions in one day, but I can't imagine that 14 million transactions in a day is too far off that record. So the fact that Kaspa is able to do this on a proof of work is absolutely mind-blowing, and it proves just how well Kaspa is currently working. So the fact that fundamentals are as bullish as this, and Kaspa is proving itself to be a scalable proof of work that is the trilemma solver, and price is currently doing this, then that potentially offers an extremely attractive buying opportunity. And it's not only looking at the fundamentals, but the fundamentals are amazing, with the number of addresses and also active addresses rising, and we're not too far off now off 500,000 holders of Kaspa with more than one Kaspa in their address. But overall, sentiment on Kaspa feels like it's at basically an all-time low here, and all you need to do is load up X, and it's incredibly difficult to find any bullish news or any bullish posts about Kaspa. Basically, all of it is negative posts and the community sort of tearing itself apart a little bit and everyone arguing and fighting, which I guess, this sort of price action will do and will cause tempers to rise and cause sentiment to drop that low. But when that is happening and the community is sort of this restless and tearing itself apart this much, then that is potentially also a very good indicator that we are either at or close to max fear here. And when looking at a liquidation heat map of Kaspa, there are now basically very few possible liquidations below us, but the amount of liquidations above us is much higher and likely much more attractive for market makers to try and hunt some of these positions. And while this chart does only go back 3 months, unfortunately, the 10-cent area is going to act as a very strong area of support. And, this area, the sort of 12 to 10-cent area, is likely going to act as a very strong area of demand. And you can see this if you have a look at the order books on exchanges. So looking at KuCoin, if you get up the order book and have a look at the sort of 10 cents area, then the order book, is thick with buys coming in at 11, 10, and 9 cents. And now it wouldn't entirely surprise me if we do tag below the 10-cent area, and maybe have a bit of a fake out down to sort of the high or the mid 9s. But again, overall, this area should act as a very strong point of demand. And looking at the hash rate is still sort of steadily climbing, kind of hanging around at the 1.2 exahash area, meaning that, miners still have confidence and still see Kaspa as a attractive opportunity here. And once again, the huge increase that we've had in the hash rate of Kaspa has not been reflected at all in the price. So that once again is another point of divergence between the price and the fundamentals. And now I'll quickly go over the Kaspa power law, because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about this. So we are currently sitting fairly significantly below the negative 50% deviation from the power law fair value, which is certainly at the most undervalued levels that we've seen historically. But looking at the R squared, we're at 0.9487. So, while this will continue to drop as long as Kaspa remains at these levels, that's still a relatively high correlation at 0.948. So it's not quite time to, put the nail in the coffin and declare the power law to be dead, while certainly we don't want to be down at these levels. Really, until the R squared gets to around 0.9, that is the point at where the power law starts to lose a lot of its validity. And, as an example, the R squared of Bitcoin is 0.96, so it is slightly higher than the current R squared of Kaspa. But when you compare that to the R squared of something like Ethereum, the R squared of Ethereum is 0.8. So, currently Bitcoin and Kaspa are basically in a league of their own in terms of correlation to a power law fit. And until we see the correlation to the Kaspa power law significantly reduce, and really I would consider 0.90 to be the point where we can really start to question if it is actually a power law. But it must be noted that price is diverging and has never been at these levels. So we would definitely like to see the negative 50% standard deviation band be reclaimed in the not too far future. So we'll just have to wait and see how quickly it takes us to reclaim that band. And the longer that it takes, the more the R squared will take a hit. So that's definitely something to be looking out for. But I think the 0.90 correlation of the Kaspa power law, that is the point at which the relationship becomes somewhat dubious. So, I know that's probably not what a lot of you want to hear, but I aim to keep it real on this channel. So that is the current situation. And I will just note that, if the R squared does drop enough to where we can start to really question if the power law is still valid, then that does in fact, potentially unlock some higher valuations for Kaspa this cycle. Because, if we are going to break the power law bands, then there's no reason that we can't break those to the upside as well as to the downside. So that covers pretty much everything that I wanted to cover today. So thank you very much, you guys, for watching. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. But other than that, until next time, cheers.